Hello, I think we're live. Okay. Hi there. Happy Friday. Thanks everyone for tuning in and being here today. It's Sam with another Friday video for you. And if you didn't already know, I'm here with author Kam Majd to talk about reading, writing, publishing, and more. Hey, Kam.
Hi, Sam.
How are
Hi,
you doing?
folks. Doing great. How are you?
Doing well. Glad to be here. Kam
Me
is a
too.
suspense novelist. Yeah. And a suspense novelist. And you've written, I think, at least one novel. Have you written a few novels?
I've written a few, yes, three.
Yeah. But your debut novel was called High Wire. It was an Edgar Award finalist. I might ask you about that later. It's a suspense pilot airplane computer virus story. Is kind of what I'm hearing. So I'll tell us about that in a minute. For now, I'm very grateful that Kam has graciously agreed with us to be with us here today and answer some of our questions. So as always, I have some questions prepared, and I'm looking forward to a great discussion about suspense, which is a genre I haven't delved into as much, so it'll be some new material for us maybe. But let's make it an interactive discussion too. So if you're at home, if you're reading, listening, watching, if you're an aspiring author, a reader, fan, whatever, post your own questions in the chat too about reading, writing, publishing, um, airplanes, suspense, anything like that. We want to hear from you too. Okay. So Kam, if you could just give us a quick overview of your book or your multiple books and your writing work, for those who aren't familiar at home, we'd like to hear about what you've done so far.
Okay. Well, let's start with Highwire. Highwire is a story of an airline captain who's been wrongly blamed for a crash that caused 6 people to die. And what nobody seems to know is that the crash didn't occur because of anything that the captain did. And it's a computer virus that has worked its way through the computer systems of the aircraft. And she actually saved the plane rather than cause the crash. And in trying to prove herself, she has to go through a series of, a world of technology and corporate greed while she's being humiliated and blamed and compared to, Sully and until she learns the truth and comes face to face with the person who's created the virus. And there she learns that there is a second virus, another one that has affected another aircraft halfway over the Atlantic, and they're doomed. And the only way that they could be saved is if she does something, and then in doing so, she's going to endanger her life and quite possibly die. So it's a David and Goliath story, but one that is based on a lot of information and a lot of research, and just the technology, the automation that the latest generation of aircraft are built by is so computerized. Sure. And they're just essentially the 2 pilots do the work of what used to be 3. The flight engineer. The seat has been taken out, the panel has been taken out, and its systems are just mostly all automated. And so in my world, I started to think to myself, the systems are safer than ever before. Aircraft flying is safer than ever before. Aircraft manufacturing is safer than ever before. But all of that manufacturing, all of that work is based on, a failure of some kind. Computer 1 fails, computer 2 takes over. Hydraulic system 1 fails, hydraulic system 2 takes over. None of them are based on, something that is man-made. And so in my world, I started to think that, now that we have, such a computerized environment, such a computerized world, what if the computers are told that they're doing the right thing when they're not doing the right thing? Right now, the way it is computer 1, flight controls is what I use. A flight control system of the latest generation of aircraft is made by, fly-by-wire. All the new Boeing planes and, certainly all of the Airbuses, it's fly-by-wire system. And the fly-by-wire system essentially takes the place of the original, 100 years ago, 75 years ago, aircraft were controlled with, pulleys and cables. You turn the yoke and a cable pulled, and some flight control surface turned. Later on, as the aircraft became bigger, and the airliners became bigger, the cables and pulleys no longer suffice. Now they have to have hydraulic systems, and the hydraulic systems required, heavy pumps, massive plumbing, all kinds of things that would take. It would take that kind of pressure to move a flight control system. But again, that was expensive. It was heavy. It was hard to maintain, and then came the fly-by-wire system. Started off in military aircraft and worked its way over to general aviation and commercial aviation. And in a sense, it's essentially they're just computers at this point. Even when a pilot turns a yoke, I mean, he's doing nothing more than typing on a keyboard. Even there's even a motor and that's down there that's created to create the environment, to create the feel that you have, because you have to feel like you're doing something when all you're really doing is typing on a keyboard.
I think how much of our world depends on technology these days. I mean, not just aviation, but everything. And if the technology were to fail or turn against us, it leads to a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, and then that's the rabbit hole I went down through. And and so in my world was, there are computers. It is the safest method of flight controls, that has ever existed. It works, fantastic. But computer one tells its information to computer two, which tells it, to computer three, and they're all designed to make sure that the information that they receive is within certain parameters, safe, etc. But that's, I said to myself, what if computer two thinks that it's getting the right information and it's not?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how the story was born.
Okay.
And
yeah, that's a good overview. Sounds interesting. Now, you clearly have a detailed knowledge of how planes work, how their piloting systems work. You worked as a pilot for many years before writing, is that right?
44 years
Wow.
in and out of cockpits. Last 35 with American Airlines.
Okay, so obviously that's a subject close to you. How has that background influenced your writing, you think? I mean, clearly it has.
Well, yeah, I mean, you spend that much time in airplanes, you learn a lot, you ask a lot of questions. So the whole story came about, just based on the knowledge and information, of airplanes. I was very curious about, how some of the systems work, and I've always, like most pilots, most people you fly with, that's just a kind of the curious minds that they like to have, in the cockpit, and I'm just one of them. So I learned the system, and from there, the work of fiction took over, and I started, looking at. I read John Grisham's, The Firm, many years ago, and I was captivated with the story, the intrigue, the mystery, the pace by which it moved. And I said, what if I take some of this and apply it to that? The technology and this world of aviation and apply it to that, and that's how it came to be.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, and I might ask you them later, but about what suspense novels, or if any, influenced you. So that's a good choice. Sorry if you hear my cat in the background. She wants to join in.
Bring it on.
Yeah, we'll see. She's going in a different direction now. Okay, but yeah, that's cool. You have the real world experience, and of course you know that world, but it makes you wonder what would happen if these things go in the wrong hands, or if this is turned against us. And you've written a story out of that. That's pretty cool. Do you still have a foot in the piloting world at all?
Well, once a pilot, always a pilot. It's I always said, I used to look at airplanes when I was, 6 years old, and and I'd see something fly, and my eyes always went to that, and I was curious about it. I do the same thing today. I still see, an airplane out there, and I look up. A foot in it, just depends on what you mean by that. I'm always interested in it. I don't fly at this moment. I retired a year ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. With the pilot shortage the way it is right now, I mean, most pilots can go out and get a job pretty quickly, but it's difficult to come, once you've, done and been where it is, it's kind of difficult to come back down and start to do it all over again. So I think it's done for me for the most part, unless I do it, for fun or something.
Yeah. At least you have that
But
option. That's cool. Yeah, I have a friend now, actually from my church, who is working to become a commercial pilot for American Airlines. He does flights every week, and I'm like, that's just his life. That's just what he's doing. But I'm like, that's really cool. Like I know nothing about that, but yeah,
it really is. And I always said, you know, being a pilot, it's kind of like, people who want to be, actors. You know, there's just a inert need in you to want to do that. The love of flying, something about, the third dimension.
definitely.
And so it's something that's in your blood, I think, for the most part.
Yeah. How has flying changed in recent years? Of course, you mentioned the pilot shortage. I mean, everything post-COVID is well up in the air, if you'll pardon the pun. But yeah, I know it's a different world in many ways.
It has changed so much. Whether it was, 9/11 and all that happened as a result of that, COVID, of course, was devastating,
Yeah,
beyond devastating, even more than the 9/11, and all the changes that have occurred with that. As you pointed out, pilot shortage has changed, so much. I mean, it's a very, very fast moving. So you've got, you've got two sets of changes. One is, just aviation, especially commercial aviation, is so dependent on, so many other factors. The economy, for one thing. Are people able to go out there and, people want to fly? And what's the business environment like? The businesses are the ones that spend the most money. I mean,
yeah,
um, and so what is that world like? So all of those things change, and some of the changes, it's on a dime. COVID, happened overnight. We had aircraft flying with one passenger on board.
wow. I
And
didn't
then
see
you
those
can
things, yeah.
imagine, yeah, what the numbers were. They were just SARS was before that, 15 years or so before
That's true.
that. And so yeah, it changes a lot. But then above and beyond that is, the technology. It has become so much better. It has become so much safer. Much of it through automation, and but it's changes happening daily. In
Yeah,
fact, when I was flying here, we would have multiples of sources of access to company information, and you would get literally daily updates and changes on things that, whether it's procedural or something, with the law or something with the airline, things that you'd have to follow.
yeah. I just remember like it was post-COVID also, I think it was almost 2 years ago, the summer of 2021, which was still on the cusp where things were starting to open again, but not really. We were taking a trip, and flights were running, but we were supposed to depart like in the afternoon, and we didn't leave till midnight. And that was of course frustrating and hard, especially because we had a 1-year-old with us. But so just figuring it out, trying to get to see family, and we were stuck at the airport for several hours. I mean, we weren't. I'm sure, obviously, we weren't the only ones. There were many in the same boat, but the pilot shortage affected that. And I think every time I've flown since then has been a lot smoother. But it's just, I know there's been a lot going on. There's this is one industry that's been hit hard and hasn't. And I mean, maybe still hasn't fully recovered from all that. I don't know.
Yeah. So here's a something that might help you and some of your listeners, in the future. If you're going to try and catch a flight, try and catch it as close to the earlier part of the morning as possible. That's when things are on time. That's when everything's working well. You got to remember, if a flight is late 2 hours, it's not just that flight that's late for 2
It's going to
hours.
affect everything else.
It's everything else that it's connected to for the rest of the day.
Yep.
And if it's late for 2 hours coming into, LA, and from here it's going to go to, Chicago, when it gets to Chicago 2 hours late, they're not going to be ready for it because they had it under schedule 2 hours prior to this. So what's going to happen here is the 2 hour delay now becomes 3, and by the time you get to the last leg of the day, the 3 could become 5 or longer. So yeah, catch your flights earlier in the morning. That's usually the most dependable time to be flying.
Good. Yeah, we started doing that just because they're cheaper too. But yeah, we've done some early morning flights this past year or so, and it makes you tired for the day, but it's still we don't mind. It's a good way to do it. Okay.
It is. Once you really think about how many moving parts go into taking, somebody from point A to point B, whether it is, mechanical or whether it's, the human beings that are involved, all of the procedures, the legalities. I mean, it's a complex world, and then you add to that something, weather, a thunderstorm goes through someplace. It's because, you don't want to be, we have our dispatch department, or American Airlines, we had our dispatch, and it's just a massive place the size of, 2 or 3 football halls with literally thousands of pieces of equipment and electronics and people that are sitting here trying to manage all this. And we always wondered, thunderstorm goes through DFW and the place is closed, the airport's closed for 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
Just what it does to everything around the globe is mind-boggling.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm in the DFW area. Actually, I'll say one thing and then I'll stop with my plane nightmare stories, because I'm sure you have more than I do. But first time I ever came here, when I was interviewing for the job I have now, I got off the plane. I was in the baggage claim area, so I couldn't I couldn't leave, or I couldn't get back in the airport. And there was a thunderstorm, and they couldn't unload the baggage. So we were just stuck there waiting until the storm was over for at least an hour. It was over an hour probably, waiting for the baggage machines to run, because they couldn't do it during a thunderstorm. I hadn't had dinner. I was hungry and tired. It was late at night, and now we have to wait over an hour for just because of rain conditions. So it was just a crazy time. Yeah, I'm sure you have many more stories like that.
Yeah, listen, we all do. You fly enough, something's going to happen. But just this thunderstorm, just since you pointed that up, you get thunderstorms and potentially lightning in the, DFW area especially. It's not that uncommon. There are regulations, there's laws, there's rules that you have, and common sense rules that you have to abide by. And nobody can be out in the ramp if there was any chance of lightning, anywhere in the zone. And so
I think it may have been a tornado watch that night. I don't remember, but it was definitely something.
Wow, even worse.
Yeah.
So people are out there. I mean, so imagine, if 5 airplanes, 10 airplanes, they're pulled in, they're ready for the luggage to unfold, to unload. The passengers are all waiting to go, make their connections out of God knows, what terminal or what gate.
Mm-hmm.
And if just a disruption to just a handful of airplanes, what that would do to the operation of everything else. The pilots that have to go from gate A to gate B, they're going to be delayed. The luggage is going to be delayed.
Yep.
The fuelers that have to now fuel are going to be delayed. And I mean, it's just, just how everything is so connected is mind-boggling, how something affects the other thing. And so, my attitude has always been, you're going to travel enough, just keep that in mind. Just make sure you try and get some extra time on both sides of it. Travel earlier, be ready for things to go wrong.
Yeah. We've all had minor delays, and like once our luggage got lost, but and that always happens. I mean, something like that happens, but those are like the biggest stories I had. And I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, and if you're catching, right now, most of the airline flying in this country is the hub and spoke system, meaning that if you want to go from here to, someplace in Arkansas, you're not going to go direct. You're going to go probably through Dallas or to Chicago or someplace. Well, take a look at what the weather is going to be like in those hubs.
Yep. Good.
You see a big weather storm system moving in through DFW or Chicago, and that's where you're going to go. Might be worth considering, doing something other than, sticking to your schedule.
Definitely. Well, thanks for sharing all that. I'm sure you have lots to say about plane stories, and I might come back to that later, but I want to talk about your book too. Your main character is Captain Kate Gallagher. You mentioned the captain who is wrongly accused and has to find the truth. What inspired this character? What inspired a lead character like her, do you think?
Well, I knew what I wanted the story to be like. I wanted to write about technology, and I wanted to write about how it affects, people. But who's going to be the protagonist in my mind was always going to be, a man, a male character.
Mm-hmm.
And then in a one night event, an event occurred that caused me to change it to a female, and that
Okay.
event was the following. Many years ago, 20 plus years ago, there was a little talked about tradition in the cockpits where the pilots, it were almost essentially all men. Today I think you only have about 6% of the airline pilots are female.
It
So
hasn't
back
gotten
then,
a lot
yeah,
more.
yeah. So even just 6%. So imagine what it was like 20 years ago. It was quite a bit less than that. So this tradition was, there was Playboy cutouts in different places, hidden in the cockpit. Little hidden cubbies or handles or little openings. And pilots would sit down and they would, somebody would, if they cared to, they would take a look at it and put it back, and that was it. It was just something that they did. Of course, that no longer exists, hasn't for some time now. But on an all-nighter, red eye, a DC-10, a flight engineer, showed up, a brand new pilot, on probation. It was a female. And we, all introduced ourselves, took our seats, and the other pilot reached over and pulled out one of these things just out of habit and took a look at it. It took about a half a second before we both recognized that this is not appropriate, and they put it back. But by now, the flight engineer had seen it. And she was great at it. She knew it. She expected it. It was nothing new for her, but it was still odd, And I thought about it all night long. What it's like to be one of such few people that are out here, and then how different it is, for people, especially at that time. And by the time it landed in New York, it said, the protagonist has got to be a female.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I obviously don't have much experience personally in that area. I mean, I haven't worked in piloting, and I'm a white male myself. But I mean, you hear stories. I know there's at least certain careers, if not a lot of career fields, where there's a lot of even if it's unspoken, even if it's implicit or whatever, there's a lot of just bias against women. So, I mean, I'm glad to hear that things are changing gradually, but no, that's cool. I'm glad you've had an event that made you rethink things and that opened your eyes a little bit. That's important. It sounds like an interesting book. I admit I have not read it yet, but just hearing about it so far and talking with you makes me want to check it out. So it sounds like a cool character and a cool story.
It is. I think it is. I could relate to the character,
Yeah.
in some way. I was born in Iran.
Right.
And I was, one of the very first Iranians, if not the very first one, hired at American Airlines.
That's awesome.
35 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, but I didn't know. Is there a similar bias against non-white people?
Not at all. I felt nothing. It was always welcoming, and you're expected to do your job. You're expected to know exactly what you're doing, and if you didn't, then you got some more training till you knew how to do your job. So all of that was exactly as you would expect it. Very professional environment. But that's on the outside. That didn't mean that I felt differently. I mean, most people I was flying with were F-14 all the way up to F-18 or beyond, Air Force or naval pilots, and it just wasn't an area that I was used to. Especially growing up and really getting my education in the general aviation world. So it felt a little, strange, just in my mind, nothing else that was out there. The airline was fantastic. The people were great. But in my mind, yeah, it was, it was a little strange being there and a little intimidating.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And so
even when
I
it's
could
not
understand.
spoken, or even if it's not intentional or implicit, it feels strange. Makes sense.
It absolutely does. And so when I was out there and I saw how she was and how she responded to it, and I put myself in her mind for half of a second, I said, what's he gonna do? Shy away or say something? No, she's just gonna, smile through it and act like it is normal when there's nothing normal about it. And that's anyhow that led to the thought and the process, and here we are.
That's really cool. I mean, we all bring our experience to what we write. I mean, there's a mindset. I don't think most professional writers probably don't say this anymore, but there has been a mindset out there like if you write a certain character, you have to have gone through what they've been through. You know, if you write a woman, you're they think you might be a woman, and I'm like, that's not how it is. I mean, I think it's a testament when people can write characters who aren't like them well, because one, it shows diversity and writing skill and everything like that, but also there's always that human experience we bring to a character, even if they're not exactly like us. You know, that there's always commonality. There's always human experience, human emotion we can bring to a character of any kind. So that's really interesting.
It is, yeah. What you brought out is an interesting point. A man writing from a point of view of a woman. The publisher at Bantam Dell asked me that. She said, I can often tell when the male writer writes from the point of view of a woman, but with you, I couldn't tell. How did you do it? And the only thing that came to my mind was exactly what happened, which was, I didn't write from a point of view of a woman. I didn't write from a point of view of a man. I just wrote from a point of view of myself. As you were pointing out, you're writing going into your own experience and into your own world. And what would I do if this happened? And, they always tell you to write about what you know.
Yeah.
And there's something to this, and I think it made the character somewhat more authentic.
Definitely. Good. Yeah, that's a good approach. You touched on this a little bit before, but how did you get into writing? Like, obviously you've been flying for many years. How did you get interested in writing, or get to the point where you thought, hey, I could write a book about this?
Like aviation, it was instinctual. It wasn't learned. I was attracted to it. One of the long hauls, used to pick up a book every here and there and read. I picked up, the firm, and like I said, I got lost in the story. I loved the pace of it, everything about it, really, yeah. By the time we got to the other side, I said, I think I can do this.
That's awesome.
So I just went and grabbed a couple of books on how to, how to write a novel. And I think one of them was called How to Write a Damn Good Novel. It's not a very big book.
Yeah.
And, and I read through that, and I just got home, grabbed Microsoft Word and typed in chapter 1.
That's cool. How long ago was that? Was it, when did you start, I guess, down the writing path?
25 years ago, somewhere in there.
Okay. So you've already been a pilot for many years, I guess, and you just decided, hey, I can do this on the side too. That's cool. Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the things about aviation, commercial aviation, certainly, where you're, you got a lot of time on your hands. Above and beyond, you work about half the month, and the other half the month is yours. And so there's plenty of time to do things. Of course, a lot of my thinking and plot, the outlines, etc., would be done in the cockpit. You just jot notes, in the back of a napkin, or we had ACARS papers we would use out there. Just you would jot notes. You'd ask, pick the brains of other pilots. How would this work, or how would that work? And it's amazing. Pilots have just intriguing minds, and so the story developed that way. Then you come home and you fill in all the blanks.
Yeah, you draw your influence from all kinds of places.
I did. I was very lucky.
Yeah. It's a unique perspective you have, it sounds like. So you've mentioned John Grisham a couple of times. Any other favorite, like, suspense books or movies or stories or authors that have influenced you significantly, or was that the main one?
I love commercial fiction. Easy to read. Yeah, I'm not big on literary fiction, and certainly I can't write it. I don't have the talent that it requires. So easy read. So Michael Crichton was always a favorite. Certainly Grisham. Stephen King. Who doesn't like Stephen King?
It's classic.
So yeah, just the basic, run of the mill big names. That's right.
Those are some of the most successful living authors probably today. So that's a good list.
For two of them anyhow.
Yeah,
Crichton is gone, but
I haven't listened to him as much, but yeah. But some of the most successful contemporary authors, I should say. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And then of course there's movies. The influence that the movies have upon you. I'm a massive movie watcher. Nothing takes the place of a big lounge chair nowadays, and the popcorn and a Coke slushy. And if you don't like it, just take a nap. Were you asking what movies?
Any movies that particularly inspired you, or that you drew influence from, or just in really cool suspense stories or plane stories or anything like that?
Um, my favorite movie of all time still remains Airplane.
Oh wow!
No, I can tell
Surely you
you.
can't be serious.
And don't call me Shirley.
I love Airplane. Yeah, that's awesome.
I can probably recite every word of dialogue verbatim, in that whole. I've watched it so many times. But what movies? So many of them. There's all genres. Anything with the word star in it. Star Wars, Star Trek, Star anything.
I'm a Star Wars guy, as you can maybe see, but yeah.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I can see it now.
I don't think I have an airplane shirt, but I have, Han Solo is a pilot, so I'll take that. Yeah.
There you go.
Are you a Top Gun guy? I know that was big this past year.
What a great movie.
I know it's military, not commercial, but I'm sure there's some commonalities. Yeah.
It's still an airplane. It's still and it's not just about airplanes. I actually like the second one a lot more than the first one. I thought the storyline was more engaging, and so it's not just about, for me, it's not just about, bang bang, airplanes, fast, this and that.
Yeah.
The character was more engaging.
Yeah. That's
and that's the other half.
I think that's the great thing about genre fiction. You mentioned the difference between commercial and literary, and I mean, I read a lot of commercial fiction too, but I think even within suspense or adventure or sci-fi or whatever, if it's done well, it's more than just, it's more than just action or flashy lights. If it's done well, there's characters you're going to connect to. Again, you're bringing that human experience into your genre. It might still be just a fun, I don't know, commercial read as opposed to a literary classic, but it's more than just surface level entertainment, is what I'm saying. Somewhere in the middle.
Absolutely. Listen, if it was, if computer graphics could do the whole trick, they would. But it's not just that. It does take the character to get involved in the story, to be invested in it, to want to know what happens next. For me, anyhow. And so that's what I tried to do in Highwire. So it wasn't just about technology or fly-by-wire system or the technicalities of what it takes, in a computer wire. It was who's going through it and what are they having to go through. So this occurs in a post 9/11 world, in New York, a post Miracle on the Hudson world, and so in our character here, she's a female. Her ability is questioned. The fact that she is no Sully, she is no Sully, that comes, it's connected to the back of her name every time it's mentioned in the media or anything.
Okay.
So it's the humiliation and the blame, and I wanted the reader to be invested in, in the technology, in the story itself. And when the time comes, for the payoff, she's not only has to be, proven innocent, but now she's the only hope for another 262 people.
That's we all resonate with stories like that. I mean, not that we've been in that situation, but again, we can understand feeling rejected or shamed or accused, and then and still the urgency there. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, if we can relate to it, if I've done my job and you can relate to the character on any level, then I think you're going to enjoy it.
So I noticed when I was preparing for this talk and researching you, I think you updated the book recently, but it was first published like 20 years ago in like 2003, right?
2001.
Okay.
So I sold the book in 2000 to Bantam, and it always takes a year and a half before it goes out from where it is, to where it ends up. The first printing was going to be, I was told 244,000 copies, just in the United States. So it was going to be doing quite well. The problem was that the galleys, the version of the book that they sell off of, it was scheduled to go out and be sold the week of 9/11.
Wow.
And the original cover, on the cover, the big heading was, faster than the speed of terror for an accident that occurs, in New York.
Yeah.
So it obviously
Too,
it was
too close to home.
way too close to home.
I was gonna say when I first saw the date, I was gonna ask if you were influenced by 9/11. I mean, you're writing it around that time, but so you actually wrote it and almost published it before that, and then just the timing was poor. It sounds like.
It is what it is. It just worked out the way it did.
Yeah.
And I understood that. And as far as 9/11. I mean, who wasn't affected by 9/11?
One of those things.
I mean, you got.
One of those things you can't plan for. I mean, yeah.
It is the way it is. Yeah. So anyhow, that was my point. Fast forward 20 years. It still did well. It still got nominated.
Yeah.
Still sold in several countries. But fast forward 20 years, I managed to revert the rights back to myself from Bantam.
Okay.
And I said, I'll update it with today's information. 20 years ago, there are banks of phones everywhere. Now, I'll give you $10 if you can find a public phone anywhere. So I updated it. And then at that point, you decided to just take it back out and give it a shot and see how it goes.
Okay. So you've not only re-released it, you've changed some things to set it in a more modern time period. Because
I did. I updated it. I updated it. The original version, the storyline is more or less the same.
Sure.
The technology is very much the same. But yeah, it's updated, new cover, new everything. And
Interesting.
well, now it's available in all the formats. Previously, it was just mass market paperback. Now you can have it in, ebooks, softback, hardback, audiobooks, everything.
No, that's interesting. And I know, like when I've been working on my novel, and I've revised over time, and I first started drafting it in 2010, which now is 13 years ago, and I had a scene with a phone booth, and then I was like, there aren't phone booths anymore. I mean, even in 2010, it was on the way out, but now I'm like, definitely not now. So I gotta rethink that. It's interesting how that works.
Yeah, so there was a lot of updating to be going
Yeah.
on. I mean, just you know how technology has changed everything.
Mm-hmm. How did it, and that was your debut novel, right? That was your first one?
That was the first one. So we're starting with the first one now, and then there were two other ones in the
Okay.
cooker.
Yeah. How did it feel to have your first novel as an Edgar Award finalist? That's a big achievement.
It was wonderful. The event itself was wonderful. Black tie dinner, and the editors showed up, the publisher, lots of people. I always said in the writing world, at least my brief experience with it, the highs are so high and the lows are pretty low. So to be able to just keep a even tempered mindset about this is something that will be of a very big of a big help. It was great. It was wonderful to know that the day I got the call that, hey, you've been nominated for this. Oh my God.
Yeah. Awesome.
It was wonderful.
Yeah, I realized this is maybe a theme that's come up in some of my other conversations with other authors. It's pretty rare to hit it big. I mean, again, think of someone like Stephen King or John Grisham, who's making millions from their writing. Most of us aren't there. Most of us are in different stages on the journey. You wrote your book, and it did decently well. It sounds like you even got an award nominated, but you still kept working for 20 years. You weren't an instant billionaire or anything like that. But still, that's an impressive. That's a really impressive feat for a first novel. So.
Yeah, I'm thrilled with it. I'm very, very happy and very lucky. And I'm glad that there are those who make it, the Grishams and Stephen Kings of the world, because it gives the rest of us, something to shoot for.
Yeah.
And something to want to achieve. So we keep trying.
Yeah, very good. You said you've written 2 other books too since then?
Yeah, actually, I've written a few other ones, but there are 2 that are almost finished. The next one coming out is going to be called Silent Voices. It's not an aviation thriller. It's about 2 sisters born in the United States, but the younger ones were separated very early on. So 2 sisters that don't know about each other.
Okay.
The story takes place in Afghanistan, and it takes place 30 days before the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan in July of 2021.
Okay.
And one of the sisters is born and raised on the East Coast, and she understands everything like you and I do. The other is raised in a rural village in Afghanistan. And she thinks she is an Afghan. She has no idea of her true identity or her true family. She doesn't understand why, she has lighter skin and blue eyes and blonde hair that's attracted so much unwanted attention. And they learn about each other, and they have to find each other in that environment. And that's the story. I'm very excited about it.
Okay. Very good. Is that coming out soonest?
It'll be out this year,
Okay.
2023, sometime in the next
Silent
6
Voices,
months.
right?
Silent Voices, yeah.
Okay. That sounds interesting too. And you're again, you draw it from your experience and from real world events that are happening and yeah.
I have been there. I have lived to that life. I was born
Right.
there. I lived there for the first 13 years of my life. So there's a lot of information. But like Highwire, the research is immaculate. And I did spend a lot of time with research,
I'm sure
with
you have
actual
research
people on the
on
ground.
top of your life experience, but that's a good start for sure.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to ask you how you found the time to write. Now, of course, you mentioned even when you were a pilot, you had a fairly flexible schedule, and now you're retired, so time probably isn't an issue anymore. But what else occupies you during the day? You have a family, is that right? And
Yeah.
I'm sure you have a life outside of just your books.
I do. Having the time on my hands, that's a big thing. And being able to travel, it's ironic for an airline pilot to say I really enjoy traveling, but you're traveling as an airline pilot is always, you go from point A to point B. It could be 300 miles away, or it could be 10,000 miles away. But whatever it is, you get to point B, you got about a 22 hour layover and you come back. So I've been everywhere, but I haven't gotten to spend the time that I wanted to.
Yeah.
Now I want to go from A to B, and I want to stay there. I want to get used to the time zone. I want to enjoy it, and then come back. And that's just wonderful. So traveling is a big part of it. Writing, of course, and then keep up with everything else. Try and figure out, all the other things, why we are here and what is life supposed to be. That's always up there somewhere.
Those are the important questions, right?
There you go.
Okay. Yeah. Good. It sounds like you know where you're going, and you're making the most of retirement and life, and sounds like you're in a good place.
I am. It's wonderful. I was concerned about people say you got to keep busy and keep occupied and all of that, and I thought maybe some of that is it's not going to happen. But man, the last I missed 15% of what I was doing before, not the other 85.
Yeah.
So I'm good with it.
I mean, you can stay busy in a lot of ways. That doesn't mean you have to work. It just means, you're writing, you're traveling. Yeah, I'm sure you're doing other things too. So that alone is good stuff to keep you occupied. Yeah.
The big difference of doing what you want to do versus what you have to do, and I'm learning that that it's a good place to be. I like it.
Okay. Can you tell us about your biggest struggles with the craft of writing or editing, or what's the hardest part of the writing process for you, maybe?
Oh gosh, the writing itself takes a lot of energy for me. I don't know how it is for others, but if I can write for 90 minutes or 2 hours, I usually just go someplace and fall face down into a bed and just pass out for the next hour. So I find that exhausting. But then, of course, it's the payoff on the other side more than makes up for it. So you keep doing it. But beyond that, it is a challenge. I mean, it's not. I don't know how. I guess everybody is different, but most authors that I know, anyhow, they are great in a closet by themselves. Shut the door, and sit down and write. But that's not all writing is, and there comes, you finish a book and you publish a book and all that goes with it. Now you got to go market the book, and you got to go against, what most authors want to do. which is be alone in a room, right? And so now you got to go be out in front of people
That's
and
true.
doing things that are not necessarily as comfortable as sitting in a place writing. So there are challenges, no question about it. But the other side of it is amazing. The letters that you get.
Yeah.
I still remember a couple of them. One was a new. It was a service member that had just been started her tour in some outfit in South Korea, and she found me and she wrote to me and she said how this book helped get her through the first few days, first couple of weeks of what she was there.
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
mean, stuff like that you just remember.
You're changing someone's life. I mean, you're at least, you're sharing your thoughts and your encouragement with someone, and you have no idea what it'll mean to someone else.
Yeah, the gratitude I felt, like I said, this was 20 years ago. I still
Sure.
remember it. There was another one. There was a lady that wrote from Sweden, this one, and she said, I got up this morning and my son was up all night, and I was angry with him because he's going to miss his classes or he's going to be late, and I wanted to know what he was up all night, and he showed me this book. He was up reading it the whole night. And I want to let you know two things. Number one, I hate you for keeping my son up. Number two, I will be up all night tonight reading it.
That's awesome.
So I mean, how do you forget that? And so, is it hard? Yeah, there are parts of it that's very hard. Is it wonderful? Heck yeah, all day long.
Yeah, that's the dream, right? You talked a little bit about the getting yourself out there and such, and how that always is a process. I had on my list where I usually ask if you did self-published or traditional, but you mentioned Bantam, and I think probably 20 years ago, self-publishing wasn't as big as it is today, so traditional was the way to go. But did they or do they help with the marketing much, or do you have to do some of that yourself, or a lot of it yourself now?
I would say, it's going to be, a lot of it is going to be up to the author. Unless you're number one on some list,
Yep.
or some big name.
Yeah, like King or Grisham or whatever.
Yeah, and then you're on your own. That's been my experience. They'll do what they're gonna do, and you just because you wrote a book or you have it published, you're not done with the book, and not
yeah.
yeah.
We're playing the long game. Yeah.
Yeah, you really are. And so, but especially today, being able to market yourself. I mean, look at what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
To be able to go out there and market yourself and find people that are of interest is key. It's going, and it's so much easier than it was, 20 years
Anyone can do
ago.
it with social media. It's easier and harder because you have the access, but you also are competing with everyone else. But yeah, it gives everyone a fair shot.
Absolutely, it does. The number of books it's incredible how it has increased. In the now versus versus just a handful of years ago. But yes, you're right. It is easier and it is harder because of the competition. But you can get the word out. You can get enough information out.
What are you doing, or are you doing anything special for self-promotion or for engaging your audience? Are you're on different social networks and such?
Yeah, social networks was something that I just didn't really spend too much time on, and I don't even now. There are people that do it for me. I'm just not good at it, or can follow up with it.
We have to do it for you. I mean that is, if you're serious about it. I mean, in today's world, it is a job. I mean, there are whole jobs of social media marketing and stuff.
Absolutely. So social media, marketing of any kind. Whether it's going to be, I've got lots of TV interviews that have happened and more that are coming up.
Awesome.
In different places. Just everything. I am learning about this portion of it. Previously it's not something that I'm used to or I've done, but I'm learning this on the go.
No, I'm honestly, I'm on the journey myself, right there with you. I didn't formally study anything like this, anything like business or marketing, but but they say often needs to be able to do that. So here I am. I'll also, building my content and things like that. So it's a cool journey to be on. Yeah, and I think a lot of us are there.
It is, and I'll tell you what people ask me. I think what you were one of your questions. What would you tell somebody else who wants to write?
Yeah, I was going to ask.
I mean, absolutely do it. Do it. I mean, it's a cliche to say if I can do it, anybody can. But it really is true. If I can do it, anybody can. I mean, I don't have the biggest background in writing. Didn't take any form of schooling or college. This wasn't even my primary language. So
Wow.
literally, if I can do this, anybody can.
That is
do
impressive,
this.
honestly.
And yeah. So but again, the upside is so much greater than all of the downside. To be able to do it, to be able to say you did it, just in your own mind, forget anything else that is, has to do with the outside. That I wrote something that I'm proud of. That I wrote something that, that I love. That the effects of that, everything associated with that, the energy of that stays within you. That doesn't leave. That doesn't go anywhere. So I'm a big fan. If you want to write something, pick up a book on how to do it. Watch a YouTube video. There's got to be thousands now. And then just grab a computer or a pen, pad and a pencil and write chapter 1.
Yeah, it's easier than ever to get started on these things.
It really is, and it's fun.
Yeah, very good. Do you have what do you think is your biggest strength in writing, or what is one thing that your stories do really well?
I've been told that they're very visual. And there, in fact, Highwire right now is being shopped around by some agencies here in Hollywood. As well as Silent Voices and others. To my embarrassment, I have never been a huge reader. And it's not something I'm proud of, but it's the way it is. But I love movies, and and I mean, I have loved movies from day one. So maybe I kind of saw things as a movie,
Sure.
And I saw them visually, and that's how I write. So that's what I've been told. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just the way it is.
It's very easy to visualize. I'm sure. I mean, that can make or break a novel. Yeah, I mean, when all you have is written word, you're not a visual artist. You're not a filmmaker or anything. All you have is the written word, and you're able to paint a picture in someone's mind. That's powerful.
It is, and I have found that to be just that's extremely gratifying, like I mentioned earlier. But again, the visualization has helped me a lot. So it's something that I've spent a lot of time trying to perfect.
Yeah, very good. Okay, we're nearing the top of the hour. So I mean, this has been a great conversation. I'm sure if we had more time, we could talk about lots and lots of things. I'm sure you have more stories to share. I always want the viewers and listeners at home to know where they can find you. So where are your books available? You mentioned they're in, well, they used to be in paperback, and now they're in all formats, I think you said.
Yeah, all formats,
Amazon,
Barnes & Noble, Amazon, etc. And it's kammajd.com, just KAMMAJD.com. That's the website, and that will take you to wherever you want to go from there.
There's ebooks and such, or the digital format? I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Kindle, so that's out there. It's on sale now, I think, for just $2.99 for about 60 days, maybe 90 days.
Okay.
Because it was just launched and trying to promote it, and after that it'll go back up. So
if you're a Kindle person, go buy Highwire, $2.99. Yeah, can't beat that.
There you go.
I'm usually not a Kindle person, but that's good to know. I was going to ask you about works you have coming out in the future, and you already mentioned Silent Voices. Anything else in the back of your, I guess, in the works right now that you can share with us? I'm sure you have more interesting stories from either piloting or from your life that could inspire another novel.
Well, a second Kate Gallagher story is going to come out too.
It
was also purchased and printed published by Bantam Dell 21 or 19 years ago now. And so I reverted those rights back as well. So a new version of that will be coming out sometime in the next 12 months.
So you've also previously published it, but it's coming out again?
That's correct.
What's that one called?
Well, the title might change, but it's High Impact.
Okay, High Wire, then High Impact. Okay.
Yeah.
Or possibly a new title.
Or
Okay.
possibly a new title.
Yeah,
There you go.
follow Cam and his website, and you'll hear about it one way or the other. Okay, very cool. And just so people know at home, where can people follow you and your work online? Give us your website. What social media platforms are you on, and where can we find you there?
All the social media, it's Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and it's Kam Majd's Books is where you'll find it. So it's either Kam Majd's Books or hashtag Kam Majd's Books.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, easy to find. I think I found you on there. So on at least a few of those. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, it sounds like you're out there. You're getting your stuff out there, and you're making your headway in the writing world. So
I'm trying, and I'm having fun in the process. So if you got people that are thinking about doing this again, I'll say go for it, man.
That's all any of us can ask for is doing your best and enjoying it. Well, okay.
That's right.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Cam, for being here today, for chatting with us and just giving us a glimpse into your world and your mind and all that stuff. Thank you those who are watching at home or watch the replay later, and we appreciate your time. As always, you can like my page, Samuel N. Harris, for future discussions and content for writers, or sign up for my mailing list at the link in the comments there or the link in the video description. When you sign up, you'll get a free sample of my story, Fractured Heroes, a few scenes that I think you'll enjoy. And of course, go check out Cam's work at kammajdbooks.com. Check out High Wire. You can buy it on Kindle for $2.99 right now. I'm sure your local library or Amazon has it, all that stuff. Anything else you want to say? Any last parting words you want to say for the people at home?
No, all good. Thank you for the opportunity, and look forward to just talking some more at some point.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, Cam. Well, thank you so much for being here today. And thank you for everyone for watching. Have a great weekend. Stay safe.
All right. You too. Bye.
Bye. Cam.
Thank you.